जय धारी माँ, हरे कृष्णा शोभा जी।
Thanks,
हरे
very happy to
कृष्णा,
be here.
थैंक यू। हमारी ऑडियंसेस का स्वागत है। आप सबको नवरात्रों की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। आइए जुड़िए। आज हमारा रामायण का जो हम जिस चैप्टर पे चर्चा करने जा रहे हैं उसका नाम है डिसेप्शन एंड डिस्ट्रक्शन। लेकिन उससे पहले warmest, heartiest congratulations to our Shubha ji because he's completed his doctorate and now he's Dr. Shubha Vilas ji. I'm going to request Shubha ji to talk about his journey of completing his doctorate, telling us about his subject, how it all happened, because he's put in so much of love, care, his heart and soul into completing his doctorate. Shubha ji, first a few words about your doctorate.
I did a PhD on leadership and management effectiveness ideas from Valmiki Ramayana. So what I have essentially done is studied Valmiki Ramayana extensively and brought out some really fantastic understanding of leadership. Everyone talks about Ram Rajya, but nobody knows what Ram Rajya is. So, one of the chapters of this thesis is completely focused on the concept of Ram Rajya as spoken by Ram.
जी,
So, like that, I've explored various aspects of leadership from the Ramayana. There's one chapter that talks about the entire Ramayana being a journey of a leader's development. The Bal Kand of the Ramayana is the training of a leader. The Ayodhya Kand of a Ramayana is how a leader deals with internal challenges. The Aranya Kanda of the Ramayana is how a leader deals with external challenges and risks. The Kishkinda Kanda of the Ramayana is how a leader builds his team. Sundar Kanda of Ramayana is how a leader manages a project which is complicated. And the Yuddha Kanda of the Ramayana is how a leader finds a succession. So, like this, the entire Ramayana is actually um, in my understanding, it brings out the complete development of a leader. So, like this, I have explored Ramayana in great detail and analyzed and studied through the verses of Valmiki Ramayana to help us understand what leadership really is. I feel that we have learned so much from the Western world on leadership. I feel this is a time to give back a lot from what our scriptures have to hold. And if you really see, a lot of the ideas that on leadership that are originating today from the Western world have actually its origins in the Eastern thought. And that's why I felt that it's so important for me to speak on this and share this with the world.
Shubha ji, this is very intense and it's very intriguing. Are you planning also now to come up with a book on this journey?
Yes, very much. There will be a book that will come out on my thesis
Yes.
on leadership from Ramayan, which will definitely uh, come soon, hopefully.
हम अपनी ऑडियंसेस को बताएं कि इवेंट से पहले चर्चा हो रही थी एंड आई वाज नॉट अवेयर ऑफ इट, बट शुभा जी ने अपनी इंजीनियरिंग करी हुई है। शुभा जी इज अ लॉयर। उन्होंने पेटेंट लॉ में उनकी एक्सपर्टीज है एंड नाउ ही इज डन हिज डॉक्टरेट। सो उनका जीवन पूरा अध्ययन में समर्पित है एंड ही इज ब्रिंगिंग आउट द बेस्ट for all of us so that we can implement it into our day-to-day practical life. Shubha ji, thank you.
Thank you so
This
much.
is Kripa, this is Lord's Kripa, this is Lord's Kripa on you, and may it always remain. जी, शुभा जी चर्चा शुरू करें।
Please.
जी जी, शुभा जी, I want to share something with you. This direction, this staircase that you see is हमारे घर की terrace है. There are a lot of plants there. And they're a part of us now, they're part of me completely. So बारिश के मौसम से पहले the gardener, we were doing our gardening and he said कुछ निकाल देते हैं, बारिश में survive नहीं कर पाएंगे। And मेरे मन में एक बात आई, ऐसे कुछ नहीं छेड़ना है, कुछ नहीं निकालना है। I want to see, मन में ही आया, I want to see which plants can weather the storm. which are resilient enough to weather the storm. And I said a prayer, and they did. They did. And I feel this chapter is all about that, because this is kind of a grand finale. It's a culmination. Now, this is the time when Ravana has to realize what he's done, and he is going to get mukti. He's actually getting mukti. लोग कहते हैं कि वो उसको तो मुक्ति मिली प्रभु के हाथों से. I'm going to start with the end of the chapter first, because it's so important. Today I'm not following the flow, because there are 4 5 aspects which are very important. Subhaji, please explain to us, what are these 10 heads, and why was his own head so stubborn that created such destruction? Ji, Subhaji.
The 10 heads of Ravan, they uh, there are many representations or many deeper meanings of why those 10 heads exist and what those 10 heads mean from a dharmic, from a deeper perspective, basically. So so the head is a seat of intelligence, and the head is a source of learning and thinking for every human being. But the same head, when it is not used in the right way, that head becomes a source of pain for you. You know. So one of the understandings of the 10 heads is that Ravan possessed 10 kinds of intelligences, and this was a boon offered to Ravan by Lord Brahma, that he will excel at politics, at Vedic texts, at administration, all types of enjoyment, etc. So each of the heads is excellent in one aspect. That is how Ravan's 10 heads are. So when Ravan was planning to kidnap Sita, he consulted all the 10 heads, all his 10 intelligences, uh, to ask suggestions. 9 of the 10 heads rejected the idea outright. Not a good idea. Only one head was very stubborn, and that was his original head. And that head just didn't agree, basically. So, all of us, we also have 10 heads in one sense. Actually, we might just have one. But we also have many types of intelligences, for different aspects. Somebody may be good in sports, somebody may be good in music, somebody may be good in different aspects. Some people may be good in multiple things also. So that's what the 10 intelligences really mean. In modern scenario, there are studies of something known as 7 intelligences: linguistic intelligence, mathematical intelligence, spatial, physical intelligence, like that. There are 7 intelligences. There's an eighth one added, to it. So modern science is still exploring what the other three could be. Probably, 5 years, 10 years down the line, they might realize that actually there are 10 intelligences. So in the Ramayan, Ram kept cutting off Ravan's heads one after another, and the heads kept growing back again and again and again. The head is the center of buddhi or intelligence, and the head also is the center of doubt and ignorance. So when you want to eradicate vices or the bad qualities in an individual, ignorance has to be cut off. So Ram cutting off the head of Ravan means cutting off ignorance, removing doubts, removing ignorance. But the nature of doubt is that when you cut it off, it comes back again. When you remove one doubt, another doubt comes. When you remove the second doubt, a third doubt comes. The nature of, so, like for example, you hear a lecture, like this discussion people are having, hearing. So the moment you hear something positive, something good, something important, you feel confident, you feel positive, you feel energized, and in a few minutes you slip back into ignorance. you forget whatever you heard. That is the nature of this world, So Ram cuts off one head of Ravan, another head grows back. He cuts off one doubt, another doubt comes back. So the process of cutting off so many heads, it simply shows that the war against evil is not a one-time affair. It's a constant war. If I remove one bad quality, one bad thought in my head, another bad thought comes up. I need to fight again. I can't just keep quiet. I can't just say I've done once, I fought, that's enough. So they keep popping back again and again and again. That means the fight against bad has to go on and on. And the only way in which the fight can stop permanently is when you hit at the navel of Ravan. What is hitting at the navel of Ravan? That when you keep cutting the heads of Ravan, the heads will keep coming back again and again. But the moment Ram hit at the navel, at the stomach of Ravan, where there was a nectar stored, that's when Ravan died. That means all the bad qualities that keep coming again and again, all the doubts that keep coming again and again in our mind, all the bad thoughts that keep coming again and again in our mind, they will stop coming only when you hit at the center of all those doubts and those bad qualities, which is sanskar. When you hit and transform the impressions in your mind, which are sanskaras, which is Sanskrit, it's called sanskar, that is when bad thoughts stop coming. The problem with most people is that we fight against bad by only nipping at that top part, of the bad. Just remove one bad thought, remove one bad, idea. But we don't go to the depth of it. We don't go to the root of the problem, which is bad impressions or bad sanskaras. And when you chop there, then it doesn't come again.
Is even-minded endurance very crucial?
Is, what did you say?
Even-minded endurance.
Even-minded endurance.
Yes. To remain even-minded
Yeah.
and to endure life
Right.
as it comes, and then yet remain even-minded, because
Yeah.
Ravana is a very classic example of what self-destruction can do.
Right.
So, how do we put that in a different perspective which the audience can relate to?
In my understanding, even-mindedness is about a sense of balance. Is about learning to be calm in the midst of chaos. Learning to be calm in the midst of calamity. Usually, endurance is possible only when we learn to be calm in the middle of uncertainties and calamities. Usually, panic is common. That's what is normal. People tend to get panicky when they come across situations which they're not sure what is going to happen. And the natural result of panic is we make mistakes. We sidestep our roles. Endurance and even-mindedness is one of the most powerful ways you can handle uncertainties in life. It is possible to be even-minded and stable if you have two things. One is knowledge, and second is self-control. So knowledge helps you fight against ignorance. One of the reasons why fear develops in a person is because there is uncertainty. Wherever you see uncertainty, there will be fear. And wherever you see clarity and knowledge, there will be absence of fear. In fact, you will, even if there is a very fearful situation that you're faced with, you will be able to deal with it with dignity and with stability. And therefore, it is very very important to have knowledge and um, the idea of um, even mindedness comes in. with that kind of knowledge.
Shubhaji, the even mindedness can be developed with a resolve because we do get signals that the path we are on, if it's correct or not, is it leading to construction or destruction? The Lord goes on giving us those signals till we are not hell bent on really destroying ourselves. Even Ravana got a signal. He entered the his chariot was entering the war zone, and a vulture came on his the flag of his chariot. He yet did not understand. Ji.
Stubbornness makes us blind. So when Ravan was entering the war, um, there was all kinds of ill omens that came up in front of him. And one of the ill omens was usually vultures. They don't come close to human beings. Vultures stay very far away from human beings. Only when humans die, that's when the vultures come to eat the carcass. But in this particular case, a vulture came and sat right on the flag of Ravan and was staring at Ravan with intense looks. That obviously simply means that his death is nearby. So Ravan, he saw that vulture, but he didn't care about it because he had great confidence in himself. He had rather overconfidence in himself, and that overconfidence made him stubborn. Any kind of stubbornness when it comes into your mind, it makes you closed to seeing the obvious. Not just that vulture, but even his own wife Mandodari gave him advice, and she gave him so many advices at different points in Ravan's life. And even the last few days, when one by one each of his relatives were dying, Mandodari kept telling him so many times. But one of the natures of people who love is that they are open to seeking advice. But when you love yourself, you don't care for other people's advices. Unfortunately, there are many human beings in this world that only love themselves. And because they love themselves so intensely, they do not care for other people's advice, no matter how much the other person loves them.
शुभा जी, मेरे को तो समझ ही नहीं आया कि from where was he getting this confidence after doing all the sin and the pap and the he knew what he was doing. He knew deep down that what he's doing is sin. Everything had been told to him, but he yet went on to destroy himself. You go on to write that a soldier without principles actually dies before the war begins. Didn't he realize that? That he's
There,
fighting a war without any principles?
there is a very interesting magazine called Vinashakale Viparita Buddhi. When your time of destruction has come, your mind doesn't work in a stable way, basically. So Ravan was head on heading for a massive destruction. Just like a moth that is attracted to fire, the moth is so intensely attracted to fire, it just rushes into the fire without seeing that all other moths that have gone ahead of him have died in that fire. But the attraction is so intense that the moth just forgets the reality. It forgets to think logically. Similarly, here Ravan, he was going through a phase that was possibly the most intense phase in any war, having lost almost everything that was in front of him. And yet, what had not left him was his stubbornness. What had not left him was his overconfidence. And Ravan's, this is the nature of success. The nature of successful people is that successful people somehow feel that they have been successful all this time, so so they cannot lose. They somehow have a strong feeling that they just cannot lose. And when they see that loss is right in front of them, somehow they still feel they won't lose. Some miracle will happen, and everything will change. Unfortunately, for successful people to become successful, to remain successful, they need to learn to cope with change. But coping with change is not easy when you have become successful in your life. And you have become successful time and again. At a certain point, your success becomes the cause of your failure. You have been so successful, you almost think, that you cannot lose. That is when you make the biggest mistakes of your life. The biggest mistakes of life are not made when you are a failure. That's not when you make the biggest mistakes because you're careful then. But when you become very successful, that's when you make the biggest mistakes of your life. Because you take success for granted. You take your abilities for granted. And you take the circumstances for granted. And you take the laws of nature for granted.
Shubhaji, success needs to be digested also. वो पचती क्यों नहीं है लोगों को? Why can't they digest what they get in life? Sometimes you're giving it a lot of grace. You can't digest it.
Yeah. For being able to digest success, digest failures, digest anything in life, there is one very important ingredient that is needed. It's like an enzyme that helps you digest many things. That enzyme is called humility. When you have humility in your heart, if you're successful, it doesn't get into your head. And if you fail, it doesn't get into your heart. When you're successful and you have humility in your heart, you feel that success is not mine. Who am I? I'm not such so great to achieve what I achieved. There's definitely some higher powers that are behind me to help me achieve it. And when you fail, you still don't get disturbed because you realize that I'm anyway so small and I'm insignificant. I tried. But just because I tried doesn't assure that I'll be successful. So this combination of dealing both with success and failures in the right way is possible when there is humility in the heart. Humility is like an enzyme, just like when we eat food, there are some digestive enzymes that are needed to be there, active in your stomach for you to be able to digest the food, isn't it? If that digestive enzyme is not there in your stomach, no matter what kind of food you eat, you will not be able to digest it. Similarly, for us to be able to digest this heavy meal of success, you need the digestive enzyme. And when you have to digest this bitter meal of failure, you need to have the digestive enzyme. And then we can handle both of them and you know remain a balanced and equanimous person in life. Krishna in the Gita speaks about this. It says Sukadukka samaya kritva labha labha jaya jaya. He speaks about how a person has to be equanimous in the midst of these opposites, or what he calls it as dualities.
Talking of talking of dualities, we now go to completely the space of dharma and what the Lord told Vibhishan when he asked him about his chariot. Because the Lord at that point did not have a chariot. Could you share with us all that the Lord said?
So there was a very beautiful discussion that happened between Vibhishan and Lord Ram. Um, just before the Ram Ravan war began, Ravan came in a massive chariot, wearing a powerful armor, carrying some of the best quality weapons in the world, and he had a chariot that was drawn by so many horses and a powerful chariot driver. So Ravan had the best of the best equipments. On the other hand, Ram was on the ground. He didn't have a chariot. He didn't have a chariot driver. He didn't have horses. He didn't even have an armor. On top of that, he had one bow and some arrows. He didn't even have a slipper, but because Bharat took his slippers away. So Vibhishan was asking Lord Ram, how will you fight against Ravan when you don't have an armor, when you don't have a chariot, when you don't have proper weapons, when you don't have, footwear, you don't have anything. How will you win against Ravan who is so well equipped? And Lord Ram smiles and tells Vibhishan, I do have a chariot. I do have an armor. I do have weapons. I do have a chariot driver. I do have all of what Ravan has. So Vibhishan was surprised. He said, where? I can't see any of it. And then Ram gives him a very beautiful allegorical example of what it means to have the chariot. He says, you need not have a physical chariot. To fight against evil, Ravan represents vices and evil, right? So to fight against evil, you need to be stationed on the chariot of dharma. And Ram says, I am standing on the chariot of dharma. And uh, I am wearing an armor of good qualities. I'm carrying a bow, which is the weapon of knowledge. I am having a chariot driver, and my chariot driver is sadhana or spiritual practices. So I have a combination of all of it. And with this combination, no anartha or no vice can stand before me. Vibhishan was amazed at the way Ram is looking at it. Many times we look at all of these things from a physical point of view only. Everything that exists in this world first exists on a mental plane and then exists in a physical reality. So Ram was not having all of it in a physical reality, but he had all of it on a mental plane. And for Ram, that was more important than just the physical realities of life.
Shivaji carrying that forward when Prabhu Ram was in the space of war. They all could see the Lord everywhere. Can you tell us about it? Because you go on to write, they could see Lord Rama everywhere. If Lord desires, we can only see him everywhere. But they want us to put that effort on our own in coming nearer to him.
Yeah. So this is a very interesting story in the during the Ram Ravan war, where Lord Ram released a particular arrow. It was a mystical weapon, and by the power of that arrow, what happened was the entire battlefield scenario changed. All the demons, they began to look like Lord Ram. In fact, all the Vanaras also began to look like Lord Ram. Everyone on the battlefield looked exactly like Ram. This led to different effects in the battlefield. All the demons were looking at each other. They were looking at each other and they were seeing Ram there. And they began to attack Ram because they had hatred in their heart towards Ram. And all the Vanaras, When they looked at each other, they saw Ram and the other person. They began to worship the other person because they loved Ram. Interestingly, the demons destroyed each other and the Vanaras began to love each other. The nature of of spiritual life is that each one of us have an element of God in our hearts. We all have a small Paramatma within our heart. We all have a private God in our hearts. So technically, spiritual life teaches us that we should bow down to each other. So when we, meet a person who is a spiritualist, we are taught bow down to them because we don't bow down to the person, but we bow down to the Paramatma within that person's heart. So when there is love in your heart, when you look at a small speck of God in the other person, you'll respect it. What is the meaning of seeing a small speck of God in the other person? Anyone who exhibits any quality, good qualities, it's a it's a spark of God's splendor. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Yad Yad Vibhuti Matsatvam Srimad Urjitam Evava. He says, wherever you see a small speck of goodness, some brilliance, Srimad Urjitam Evava, he calls it a spark of splendor. If we see someone very kind, that's a spark of splendor. If you see someone very brilliant in speaking, that's a spark of Krishna's splendor. If you see someone very brilliant in managing things, that's a spark of Krishna's splendor. If you see someone very good in writing, that's a spark of Krishna's splendor. If you see someone very good in, uh, say, oratory skills or musical skills, that's a spark of Krishna's splendor. Anywhere you see any kind of goodness, some good quality, that's a spark of Krishna's splendor. So, technically, the Ramayan war, which happened that day, is still happening today. Some people, when they see the spark of Krishna's splendor in somebody's heart, they get envious and they want to attack that person out of envy. And some people, when they see the spark of Krishna's splendor in somebody else's heart, they actually adore that person, they respect that person, they worship that person. Why? They love God and they love anything that is inspired by God's creation. So when the demons saw Ram everywhere, they began to attack each other. And just by attacking each other, thousands of them died. Without even Ram having to do anything, without even the Vanaras having to do anything. We just killed each other because of envy. And the Vanaras, their respect for each other grew. Why? Because they realized potentially there is Ram in everyone. They actually started respecting each other so much more. The love between them grew so much more. Because anytime Ram can manifest through any of them. Isn't this how life is? We have to decide whether we want to take the mindset of the demons and see Ram everywhere. And when they see Ram everywhere, they want to destroy that Ram because there is envy in the heart. Or we want to take the mindset of the Vanaras. When they see Ram everywhere, they want to respect because there is so much love in the heart. I think that's this one story. If every human being understands, life will be so much better, isn't it?
Ji, Shubhaji. Shubhaji, isn't that exactly what Vibhishan was doing? And आपने लिखा है destruction of a evil plan is construction of a good future. So Vibhishan played his role there. जी.
Yeah. A lot of people, uh, especially in the Bollywood industry and also in regular life conversations, when one brother is going against another brother, they say there's a Vibhishan in the family. You know, they make it as if Vibhishan did something really wrong. Actually, Vibhishan did the right thing. Sometimes what is bad for your body is good for your soul. Vibhishan was not wanting to protect Ravan's body, but he was wanting to protect Ravan's soul. So a lot of us, we do not care for the other person's soul. but we are so much attached to the person's body. When we are attached to a person's body, we think from what is good for the body, but in the process, we sell the soul. In the process, we really become pathetic in terms of how we treat the inner conscience. Vibhishan loved his brother, and the way he manifested his love for his brother is in the form of warning him of the wrong that he was doing, and eventually in the form of letting him down and exposing him. So, by letting Ravan down, Vibhishan actually helped him. Because there are some people who cannot be helped with words, they have to be treated through punishment. There are two words in Sanskrit, Shastra and Shastra. Shastra means weapons and Shastra means knowledge. Vibhishan tried to give Shastra to Ravan a lot. And of course, Ravan is a master of Shastra, isn't it? Ravan knew every scripture in the world, only he didn't realize the knowledge. There is a difference between information and transformation. There is a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is theoretical, wisdom is practical, application of that knowledge. Ravan had a lot of knowledge, but he didn't have wisdom to understand how to apply that knowledge in life. Vibhishan may not have so much knowledge, but he had wisdom. He knew the application of that knowledge, little whatever he had. So Vibhishan tried his best to give Ravan Shastra. But when Shastra didn't work, he realized the only way this person can rectify himself is through Shastra, through weapons, through punishment. Punishment is not bad. In fact, sometimes punishment is needed. Society that doesn't have punishment as a means to rectify people can potentially be a very dangerous society to be in. And therefore, we all need. I mean, punishment doesn't have to be implemented every day, but it has to be there to remind people that if you do not follow the laws, there is punishment there waiting. That reminder at the background of your mind is a very important reminder for society to be thriving and prosperous. That's exactly what Vibhishan did. Ravan was a brother, and Vibhishan loved him. Sometimes you have to show what is known as tough love. What is tough love? So when love is given in a very soft, gentle, beautiful way, in a way that you love, that you like, you enjoy, that's soft love. But sometimes when love is given in a way that is painful, that's tough love. But it's love nonetheless. A mother has shows soft love all the time to a child. But sometimes when the child really behaves naughty and really behaves in a very defiant way, the mother has to show tough love. Because only when she shows tough love today will it help the child in his future. That's exactly what Vibhishan did. He showed tough love to his brother by letting him down.
Tough love with pure love. Shubhaji, can you also talk about Mandodari? Because very, very important to talk about her. Even in the last moments of Ravan, she tried her best to, and how she was guarding the Brahmaban, how she was guarding it, and then it had to go. Can you talk about her? See.
So Mandodari represents those people in our life who don't give up hope on us. Even when we are really bad, there are some people who have hope that someday we'll change. Mandodari represents those people who are epitome of love and affection. And no matter how bad we are, they see something good in us. I mean, nobody ever saw anything good in Ravan, but Mandodari did. Because she knew a side of Ravan that nobody knew. In every strong person, there is a weak side, and that they don't expose that weak side to anyone. In fact, When a strong person shows that he's strong, he's actually hiding his weakness. So Mandodari not only knew the strong side of Ravan that the world knows, but she also knew the weak side of Ravan that no one knows. So her compassion for Ravan is amazing. Though Ravan was such a bad person in every possible way, she still felt that someday Ravan will change because she had seen the softer side of Ravan that nobody else saw. So when Ravan was lying dead on the battlefield, and Mandodari saw hundreds of heads of Ravan scattered all over, hundreds of arms of Ravan scattered all over, and the dead body of Ravan on the ground, Mandodari went and began to converse with the dead body of Ravan. And she started telling him all those things that she always wanted to tell when he was alive, but she never got to tell. Why? Because she was scared of him, and Ravan would not allow her to tell also. So Mandodari was telling Ravan that why did you not understand? So many times I told you, so many times, so many people gave you advice. Why did you not understand that advice? Ravan, not once, sorry, Mandodari not once blamed Ram for the death of Ravan. Usually, the wife blames the person who murders the husband, obviously. Even if the husband is done a bad thing, but the murderer becomes the uh, the directive of the wife's anger. But in this particular case, Mandodari not once blamed Ram for what her husband went through, for the death of Ravan. And Mandodari instead was glorifying Ram. She was glorifying Ram as uh, Dharmatma, as a person who has done everything perfect. And Mandodari was blaming Ravan for his imperfection and for his foolishness. She stood by him throughout her life. And even at the time of death, she stood by him. But not once she said, "You are right." She always said, "You're wrong," when he was wrong. When somebody we love does something wrong, we tell them, but we don't give up on them. That's what we can learn from Mandodari. It's amazing. She kept telling Ravan, "You're wrong," but she never gave up on him. Giving up is so easy, isn't it? When somebody does something wrong, giving up on them is so easy. But transforming them, hoping that they will transform someday, standing by their side and advising them, standing by their side and encouraging them, stuff. And that's what Mandodari does. Mandodari doesn't give up. She doesn't give up because she sees goodness innately, even in the worst of worst people. And like Mandodari, all of us in our life, we may be surrounded by bad people. But in every bad person, there is an element of good. We don't give up on a relationship because we see that element of good and hope that someday that guy will change. Of course, it doesn't mean that we tolerate exploitation. It doesn't mean that we keep quiet when there is exploitation. It doesn't mean that we allow exploitation. It simply means that we allow people to take their time to transform and become good human beings. Not giving up on people is so important in life. Being there for people is so important in life. And encouraging people is so important in life.
Shubhaji, Mandodari also had a lot of a lot of swabhiman and man for her love, for her love, and for the fact that she was taking a stand. She took a stand and she tried her best. Isn't that what love is all about? It's supposed to bring out the best in you. The greatest prayer of love is that the more you love someone, the more you want the best to come out of that person. And she did that. But she led a tough life.
Anyone who wants to do good to the world won't have an easy life. Sacrifice is the essence of life. If you want to sum up life in one word, that one word is sacrifice. Everyone who wants to do something good in life has to sacrifice at some level or the other. If you want to do good for the country, you have to be ready to sacrifice at some level. If you want to do good for society, you have to be ready to sacrifice at some level. If you want to do good for your family, you have to be ready to sacrifice at some level. You want to do good for any relationship, you need to be ready to sacrifice. In fact, if you want to do good for yourself, you need to be ready to sacrifice. Without sacrifice, nothing great is achieved. The greatest stories in this world are stories of the greatest sacrifices also. So Mandodari's story is a story of great sacrifice, but that's what makes her story so great.
Shivaji, this was about all those who gave their all in this process. Now, coming back to how this war was fought. The Vanaras fought it with, of course, complete prayer and surrender and faith. But they also fought it with complete confidence. And what is confidence? You've written it's the absence of mental barriers. How does one remove those mental barriers? Because they are the real barriers. The mental barriers are the real barriers. Ji.
Mental barriers get created from your childhood. They systematically get planted by your parents, systematically get planted by your teachers. They get systematically planted by yourself and your thought process. So they also get systematically planted by your circumstances in which you are. So we all grow up with a lot of mental barriers that we have created for ourselves and others have created for us. When we, especially when we come across complicated situations in our own life, those mental barriers that have been created from our childhood come into picture, and they stop our growth. They stop our functioning in the best possible way. To deal with mental barriers, first is we have to undo many of the things that we have been fed over a lifetime. That's possible only when we come across people who are themselves out of those mental barriers. Like, say, for example, if you are with a person who is always thinking negative, it is impossible for you to change your framework of thought process if you are also negative. Only when you have someone who is very, very different in their thinking, in their doing, in their thought process, will you have any chance of getting out of your mental barriers. To honor us, they in their before they met Lord Ram, they were different, and after they met Lord Ram, they were different. Because in Ram, they saw someone who was so far different from all the leaders that they had ever seen till now. Till now, they had only seen insecure leaders like Sugri Wali. They had not seen leaders like Ram who are so selfless, so compassionate, so loving, so genuine. When the Vanaras got exposed to personalities like Lord Ram and Hanumanji, they realized that the fight is not at an external level, the fight is here on an internal level. And when the Vanaras began to fight internally first, they began to become much more sorted than than they were before. And when they won the inner fight, the external fight was much easier to win. So observing Ram, being with Ram, learning from Ram, and emulating Ram help them overcome a lot of the mental barriers that would have otherwise been difficult to fight a war like that. Ram was very confident that nobody can come and attack me. The Vanaras were very confident that it is impossible to attack Ravana. So Ravana was right, Vanaras were right. But where did the change happen? Where did the Vanaras get the confidence from? How did army that is untrained, an army that is unequipped with weapons, an army that is absolutely so less strong compared to Ravan's army and so less in number compared to Ravan's army, attack and win a country that was never defeated? Then one factor was a Ram factor, because Ram had a mindset that could help the Vanaras break all the mental barriers that they had created for themselves. And with the new mindset, the Vanaras could they perceive the war very differently. And that's why they won.
Shubhaji, just now a final question, then we will conclude this chapter. Creation is so difficult. What you've written is creation was difficult, destruction is easy. तिनका तिनका करके भी चिड़िया अपना घोंसला बनाती है with just one, एक हवा का झोंका और वो टूट जाता है. The respect and regard for construction. Why are we all not oriented towards construction? Why are we all not builders? Why are we not all building all the time?
The creative process requires calmness. The destructive process requires wildness. Calmness is like meditation. It takes a lot of energy to meditate. Playing a video game is much easier. Doesn't take any energy. If you actually look at uh, the nature of work also, people who do R&D, they get much higher paid than people who do simple jobs, physical labor. Though apparently the hard work is more in physical labor. Why? It's physical in nature, it's external in nature. Anytime when there is lot of energy on a mental level that is required, it's always higher value. So creation requires a lot of mental energy. Destruction is only physical energy. And therefore, creation always has a higher value than destruction. Also, from the point of view of ease of doing it, anything creative is not easy, and therefore, not many people can do it. Anything destructive is so easy, so many people can do it. If you just look at society today and look at jobs that are easy, you'll find the number of people that are doing it are much more. And look at jobs that are difficult, you'll find the number of people that are doing it is absolutely minimal. Why? All the more tougher. The more tougher it is, the more creative ability it takes, and the more energy it takes. The job that is easy, the less creative ability it takes. In fact, it takes more destructive ability than creative ability. And it's so much easier. And therefore, the number of people that are doing it is much more. The Ramayana is not a war on an external level, it is a war on an internal level. When Ram was fighting a war, he was not only thinking from a destruction point of view, he was actually talking about a Navanirman, a new creation. That is why before the Ram Ravan war got fought, Vibhishan was crowned as a king. So before the old king is destroyed, a new king is already appointed. So from Ram, the war was not about destroying Ravan. The war was about creating a new Lanka with a new mindset, with a more positive, wholesome, and a mindset that is upgraded. So any war that is fought in this world is fought for two reasons. One is a selfish reason, and another is a selfless reason. The Dharma Yuddha that we all know of, the Mahabharata and the Ramayan, are wars that are not fought for selfish reasons. And therefore, if you see, the one that propagated the war in case of Mahabharata, Krishna, and in the case of Ramayan, Ram, both of them didn't take the property, didn't claim anything in the property, isn't it? Ram didn't claim Lanka, he just walked out the next day. Krishna didn't claim Hastinapur and Indraprastha, he walked out the next day. That proves that they didn't have an attachment behind that war. For them, the war is always meant for a greater good and for a more creative and a more positive, reinforced governance, which is conducive for creation. And for that, sometimes a little destruction is needed. Just like when a cancer is spreading across your body, sometimes you may have to amputate a limb. And an amputation of the limb may seem like destruction, but that is actually needed because otherwise the cancer will destroy the whole body. So what seems violence is actually not violence. It is for a greater good.
What a beautiful thing you've said. So I had written that day, सही सही कर्मा का उद्देश्य कभी गलत नहीं हो सकता. कर्मा वही सही है जिसका उद्देश्य सही है. So that's what we need to keep
Yeah, absolutely.
focusing.
Any action that leads to greater good, apparently the action may seem to be bad, but if you look at it from the point of view of end result, the goal of that action, it's not bad. The path to establish greater good sometimes may pass through some temporary badness. But the temporary badness is meant for a greater good. And that temporary badness is not bad at all. Just like a police which is chasing a criminal may sometimes have to break the traffic signal. You can't say that the police itself is breaking laws. No, the police is breaking one law for protecting a bigger law that from being broken.
जी, Shubha ji, thank you. We've concluded, we've completed the chapter, and of course we are missing Mummy here for her lovely sum up.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Your
hopefully
presence is
she'll be.
always so wonderful.
Yes, yes. Hopefully she'll be back for our next session. हम अब अगले महीने मिलने वाले हैं आपको with chapter number 9, elimination and illumination. वो chapter 9 है, Invictus. And we are again very, very happy for Shubhaji's doctorate, and we again congratulate him. It's a moment of joy and pride for all of us at the end, because we are family and we have a deep sense of belonging. So,
Thank you very much, and such a grateful pleasure and honor to be with all of you all for
जी,
month after
we're truly,
months
yes,
now.
we're truly very happy. This we're truly very happy because we've seen the kind of hard work you've put in. You put in so much of your heart. जी, जी, हम ऑडियंसेस का शुक्रिया करते हैं. हम आपको मिलेंगे अब अगले महीने. एक ही बात जानिए समझिए, बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट जो मुझे लगता है सार है. ऑपरेट फ्रॉम द हायर सेल्फ. अपने सेल्फ को पहचानिए, जानिए. ऑपरेट फ्रॉम द हायर सेल्फ. Operate from your Atman, not the human limitations. Don't operate just from the human mind. Operate from the higher consciousness. उसको थोड़ा जागरूक कीजिए. And open your heart, open your arms and seek their grace. मिलेंगे आपको अगले महीने. जय धारी माँ. शुभा जी, हरे कृष्णा. जय
Thank
श्री
you,
राम.
Hare Krishna.
धारी माँ.